All right, hello, what's going on?
Hey everyone,
This is the start of a bold new adventure for us. I'm Paul,
I'm Gabe.
and together we have formed this channel, this YouTube channel, Dynasty Done Differently. This is our raise the roof, buddy.
Hey,
Uh, this is our this is our first video, our first time trying this, so we don't have any like super solid expectations, but we'll see how it goes. And
yeah,
right, I think we can agree we have quite a bit of Dynasty knowledge. We've been playing for a couple years, and figured it was time to start a channel and share our
yeah,
knowledge with the world, right?
have some fun. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So I guess maybe before we get started, you still hungover from your birthday celebration yesterday?
a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you only turned 25 years old once, right?
hey,
So.
yes sir.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah, basically, just to give you guys a brief intro about our not a brief. Wait, can you stop recording? I'm so sorry. All right. So to give you guys a brief introduction, or basically a little bio about ourselves. Well, I started playing Dynasty, I think in 2019. So it's been a while. Playing several different leagues. Don't play in as many as you do, Gabe. Uh, but we definitely. I mean, we listen to a lot of podcasts. We consume a lot of content, and so that, in addition with our experiences, I feel like we have a pretty good pulse on modern day Dynasty fantasy football. So how many leagues are you in, Gabe? Tell the people.
13, I believe, is the
13.
total right now.
13 and counting.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, in constant.
Uh,
Yeah,
I'm only in five at the time. I've tried to cut back, but as probably any of you know who are watching this video or subscribing to this channel, Dynasty Fantasy Football is an addiction, and so we're here to help guide you through
sure
that
is.
addiction and hopefully make it pay off for you in the long run, both in terms of money and championships and pride, to hold it over your league mates. So, was there anything else you want to say, Gabe, before we get started?
No, I don't think so. I guess I would add that you're a big scam, a big fan of Scott Connor. He's our he's our god, I
Our
guess per se
guru,
in
yes.
Dynasty.
Yeah. Well, and again, I mean, some of you, watching this video, you might be familiar. I mean, for me, back in the day, kind of started off with the fantasy footballers in terms of like redraft. But yeah, nowadays I listen to a lot of the Destination Devi podcasts on their channel, and I would say, at least for me personally, I don't know if you feel the same, but Scott Connor is kind of, gospel for me. And so I
Yeah,
hope he doesn't mind us name dropping him here. But no, I think he has a really unique take on Dynasty, and he looks at things in a very unique perspective, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And so I try to channel some of what he says and does in what I do, or the way I kind of approach Dynasty. And so I think I mean, you and I have had many conversations just about general
mm,
strategy and how to approach Dynasty. And anyway, so I mean, before we ramble on too long here, what we were planning to do today was to do a rookie mock draft. Obviously, the NFL draft is coming up in just a couple days. I'm sure y'all are just as excited as we are. Feels like I've been waiting for like 6 months,
yeah,
and
I know.
we're almost finally here, right? It's exciting. Um, so yeah, we found a mock draft on NFL.com. Gabe, you found it from Chad Reuter, right? Just a couple
Yeah, I
of
think
days
that's
ago.
it. Yeah, Chad Reuter.
hmm Okay. So yeah, he posted this mock draft. It's a full 7 round mock draft. Posted it a couple days ago. So you can probably see on the screen there, we have like a Google Doc of some of the more prominent, obviously fantasy relevant players and their landing spots and draft capital and stuff like that. So we are going to do a 3 round rookie mock draft based on this NFL mock draft from Chad Reuter, with all the landing spots and everything. And I guess as we're going, we'll just kind of break it down, maybe talk about like some tiers, maybe guys who could be sleepers, or maybe guys who are being overvalued for one reason or another. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it, right? That's what we're gonna do for you today.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it. You got the 101, right?
101. Yeah, that's a tough one, huh?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
need a couple minutes
clear.
to think about it.
Yeah, I think absolute clear option, Bijan Robinson. I think just based on, I mean, I know the quarterbacks. I mean, well, I guess we should say too, where I guess our format we're basing this off of. We're gonna do I guess, what do you think of, well, a super flex league? But I guess the 12 team, what, start 10 or 11, something like that. I guess Doesn't matter
Yeah.
ultimately.
Well, it does matter, I would say, but probably yeah, 12 team Superflex start 10. Do you want to do
PPR.
point tight end premium? Yeah, full PPR. Do you want to do half point tight end premium or 0.75?
Maybe 0.5. Let's do
Point
point
five.
0.5, I guess. Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So just to yeah, just to recap that again. So 12 team Superflex start 10 full PPR, point 0.5 tight end premium, and yeah, we'll just leave it at that. I feel like that covers the
Mhm.
basics there.
Yeah.
And it's important to bring that up, but like you said, I think regardless of the format, unless it's like a really unique scoring format,
hmm
Bijan's probably going to be the 101 in just about every single league.
Yeah, yeah. I think unless the QBs are absolutely juiced, like they get like point per completion or stuff like that, then I think it's got to be Bijan. One of the top prospects since Saquon.
Yeah.
Yeah, 101.
Right. All right. You want to give the people some info about where he went in this mock draft?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, so then here he went at the eighth pick, so pretty early. So top 10, he went to the Falcons. I think that would be a pretty good landing spot for him. I mean, I think they ran the ball. What are they, like top 3 last year, I believe,
Yeah.
and I think rushing attempts. So yeah, I think that'd be a great landing spot for him.
No, I agree. And again, we don't have to get too much into Bijan because he's
Mhm.
the consensus 101 in just about every league, regardless of
Yeah.
where he lands. He's almost landing spot proof, I would say.
hmm
Of course, knock on wood. I don't want to jinx it. There are some spots that would suck for his dynasty value, but
Yeah.
I think just about as landing proof as it gets, landing spot proof as it gets. And yeah, to speak to what you said about the Falcons, I think right now the sports books, like the Vegas odds, have them as the team most likely to draft Bijan
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
at the eighth overall pick. And like you said, I mean, they love to run the ball. They ran the ball a lot last year with Arthur Smith. And I think they're projected to have a pretty solid, offensive line too. So
hmm
in general, yeah, we can kind of leave it at that. But it's a pretty solid landing spot for Bijan. So then I guess heading over to the 102 here.
What you got?
Again, considering the format, over the last couple weeks and months, right? There's been all these different reports coming out about, at first it was going to be C.J. Stroud going 101. Now Bryce Young is the favorite to go 101. We don't know where Will Levis is going to go. Obviously, we got all these landing spots in this mock draft, but for me at the 102, I'm going to go Bryce Young. In this mock draft, he did go number 1 overall to the Panthers. And just again, I mean, I don't think we need to speak too much to him as a prospect. I mean, we know he's a solid prospect coming out, and given this landing spot, obviously the Panthers are showing a lot of confidence in him to be the face of their franchise. And again, I don't think we're going to sit here and say that the Panthers have amazing weapons right now, but again, this is dynasty, right? You're playing for the long term. It's not just what you see right now. So I think given the draft capital and the talent and his record as a collegiate athlete, I think he's a pretty easy 102 here for me. I mean, do you disagree on that?
No, no. I think it's tough to. I think it is going to be tough. I think when we sit down and draft within our rookie drafts in our different leagues, I think it'll be tough. If you're at that 102, when you have that choice, because you have the choice most likely between Young, Stroud, or even. I mean, in this mock draft, Will Levis is going at the 102. I mean, it's even kind of tough of where you pick him. But I think I'm personally leaning Young right now
Yeah.
as the 102.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed. All right. Well, now you got a tough decision here at the 103.
Yeah.
Because, like you just said, Will Levis went 102. You got some of the other QBs there. So what are you thinking here?
I mean, it's tough. I know, a lot of people have been talking about Anthony Richardson and his massive upside with all the rushing, but then he has a lot of question. I mean, he scored perfect 10 RAS score at the combine. I think he's the top. I think he was the top. He scored the best scores at the combine for a quarterback ever. So I mean, he's an insane athlete, but obviously there's question marks about his throwing ability, about his pocket presence, and how that's going to translate to the NFL. And then Stroud, there's been some weird stuff about Stroud recently, and he's really fallen as even on here. So Will Levis jumps him in this mock draft, and Will Levis goes to the Texans actually, and Stroud goes to the Colts. Because I think most people are thinking recently that Stroud is going to go to the Texans or the Panthers. But I think for me, I think this would kind of depend on my team in the specific league if I really want the massive upside of Richardson. But I think overall, I think I would have to go C.J. Stroud second, just based on his floor. I think is going to be much higher.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. I did not know if you were going to lean towards Stroud or Levis there, but
Yeah, it's tough.
it is tough. It is tough. And yeah, all the weird stuff with the S2 cognitive test or whatever that's come out about him lately. I mean, I don't know how much stock you put into that. Personally, I'm not really buying it. I mean, if the test is telling us that if he bombed the test as they're saying and like
Yeah.
does not have the football IQ to be a good field general, then I don't think he would have had the success that we saw him have in college.
Yeah.
So I feel like that stuff is kind of overblown. It's definitely a red flag, but I think it's a little bit overblown personally. But I probably would have gone C.J. Stroud there at 103 as
Okay.
well.
Yeah.
Moving on to the 104. I don't know if this is a spicy take at this point based on this mock draft, but I'm going to go Anthony Richardson. I know he fell a little bit to the 110. Obviously, I know Will Levis, got the draft capital over him. But just, like you were talking about a minute ago, the RAS score with Anthony Richardson, just his athletic abilities are off the charts. And at this point, I'm swinging for upside. And of the four kind of big quarterbacks, Stroud, Young, Levis, and Richardson, I think Will Levis is the most risky prospect. I don't mind the landing spot for him, and obviously the Texans are investing a lot, taking him at 2 overall. But I think Richardson's upside is just too high to pass up here. Now, obviously, going to so this pick, he went 110 in this mock draft. The Vikings traded up to get him. So I think that probably means he's gonna not really start much year one. He's probably gonna sit behind Kirk Cousins, take a year to develop. So again, it kind of depends on where your team is at. I mean, if you're a contender in 2023, you're trying to go all in right now. Maybe I would lean Will Levis then. But I think long term, Anthony Richardson has a much higher ceiling. And again, he's coming in as a raw prospect, right? Like I mean, probably any YouTube channel or podcast that you've listened to at this point is going to tell you that he's a raw prospect, but the athletic ability is off the charts, and there's no reason his rushing can't be as good or better than like Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Justin Fields. So at this point, I'm willing to take a gamble and roll with Richardson.
All right, I like it. I think the next pick is going to be really tough now. So I would definitely agree. I would take these 3 quarterbacks, for 2, 3, 4. But I think this next pick, especially because like you were talking about with Richardson's landing spot, is that like you said, he's probably not going to play year one. But with Levis's landing spot, I think him going to the Texans, I think there's a really good chance he could start, game number 1. Who knows? Where I think Levis, I don't know. So I guess ultimately I'm between Levis and JSN right now. I think based on this mock, I think I almost have to go Levis. I think just all 4 quarterbacks back to back. It's really tough to not go JSN, but I think in a SuperFlex format, as some people have said, if you're going to take Anthony Richardson's upside and his rushing, I think you kind of have to also pair Levis in there too with his big rushing upside, and he has the cannon of the arm. And if the NFL is showing us they're going to take him at the 102 to the Texans, I think that's a great landing spot. So did they take a wide receiver then in this mock or no?
The Texans?
Oh, they do that. Yeah, they take Quentin Johnston as well.
Yeah, that's later on in the second round. But all right, so you're locking in Levis here.
Levis, yep, I'm going with it.
I like it. And again, I mean, if we look back at this mock draft like 6 months from now, it could even be a mistake to take Richardson before Levis. But I think at this point, like you said, given the draft capital and given the SuperFlex format and the fact that he's pretty much guaranteed to be their day 1 starter, going 2nd overall, I don't think you can pass him up here.
Yeah.
And that makes my pick a little bit easier here. So I'm debating a couple of guys, but for me, it's still pretty clearly going to be JSN here at the 106.
Yeah, 106.
He fell a little bit in this mock draft. Honestly, all the wide receivers kind of did a little bit, but he actually was not the first wide receiver taken. He was the 2nd wide receiver taken, but he went 22nd overall to the Ravens, which again, the Ravens are kind of the franchise is up in the air right now. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. They supposedly have a new offense coming in with Todd Monken. And I, again, from what I've heard from other people who are probably more knowledgeable on this than I am, Todd Monken's offenses, they tend to throw the ball a lot. Most likely, Baltimore is not going to be as run-heavy as we've seen the last couple years. So I think also just given, the prospect profile that JSN has, I think he's going to succeed, or he can succeed no matter who his quarterback is. So probably best case scenario, right, would be that Lamar's back there and he's his quarterback. But I feel like even if they have somebody else, it's JSN is certainly not a bulletproof prospect, but he's got a very enticing profile, and I think all the talent is there. So even though he didn't go as the first wide receiver off the board in this mock draft, I would still have him as the top wide receiver in the class. Do you disagree with anything there, or would you do anything differently?
I would do the same thing. Yeah, I think JSN at the 106. I mean, I would imagine. I think the 106 owner would be pretty happy to get JSN. I think that's what's tricky about this year's rookie drafts is if the teams that want the quarterbacks, the teams that are kind of more just looking for the other skill players. I think people are going to be pretty happy if they can get Gibbs and JSN and these non-quarterback players at the 107, 108. I think that's a great price for them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. All right. So who's next then?
Yeah. I think this pick is tough then.
Yeah.
Because then Addison actually went as the first wide receiver off the board to the Bills. I mean, I could see people going nuts about that. Getting paired up with Josh Allen.
Yeah, and look at the third wide receiver off the board, Zay Flowers to the Chiefs, 4 picks. So I know we're getting ahead of ourselves here, but it is a tough spot. It's a tough spot.
This is spicy. I like it though. This is awesome. I feel like up to this point, I haven't really checked out too many mock drafts. Because I didn't really want it to. I guess I don't want to get my hopes up about certain players, and it could be completely different, on the actual draft night. Right. So I guess I'm between Gibbs or Addison, to be honest. And I mean, Gibbs definitely has his question marks, but he has the very high upside of the receiving ability. But I know in college, he had below a 50% snap rate, which is concerning.
Yeah.
This is a tough pick. I think my gut's telling me to go Gibbs though.
Yeah. Okay.
I think just based on, I think I would rather draft the running back here, process-wise, rather than the 107 is a pretty hefty price to go for Addison. I think he definitely still has question marks, but I could see you taking Addison here if he goes to the Bills.
Yeah. All right. So you're locking in Gibbs there at the 107.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Gibbs.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I am at this next pick then at the 108. If I was in your spot at the 107, it would have been tough. I don't think I would have taken Gibbs, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I was debating one of the 2 wide receivers, and now that you took Gibbs, still debating the 2 wide receivers. But like we alluded to, so in this mock draft, right, Jordan Addison went off as the first wide receiver off the board. The Bills traded up to pick 20 to draft him. And then 4 spots after that, Zay Flowers went 24th overall to the Chiefs. So I'm between those 2 guys. Again, I mean, we're not like college scouts. We mostly, we watch the NFL and we play Dynasty. So I'm not going to, pretend to be like a college scouting guru here. I know they both have their concerns, their size concerns, both Addison and Zay Flowers. But I know they also had both quite a bit of success in college. I mean, Addison was a Biletnikoff Award winner, and some people have been copying him to like Devontae Smith as one of those outliers that's small frame but like can still succeed in the NFL at the NFL level. And obviously the Bills are showing a lot of confidence in this mock by taking him as the first wide receiver off the board. Man, this one's tough. I think at the end of the day, I'm going to go Jordan Addison. Okay. I lead him slightly over Zay Flowers. Again, I think they both have great landing spots. I think I like Jordan Addison's profile, like college profile, a little bit better. Okay. And I just like the fact that the Bills are committing to him by trading up to make that pick and taking him as they took him over JSN, who far and away, at least within the fantasy community, he's the wide receiver 1 in the class. So I think just given that level of confidence from them, I would take him over Zay Flowers, even though it's close. And I'd definitely take him over, any of the other running backs or tight ends who went later in the draft. So, yeah, lock me in with Jordan Addison there.
All right, so I guess hypothetical here. Let's say Addison didn't go to the Bills. Let's say he falls, I don't know, to some other team like the Packers or like in the early second or something like that. So then I guess I'm curious if it was between maybe Johnston or like Zay Flowers here. Who would you select?
Well, Johnston went early second round to the Texans in this mock draft. Mm-hmm. Zay Flowers, again, the Chiefs traded up for him in this mock draft to get him at the 24th overall pick. So I would probably go Flowers over Johnston at that point. Johnston's profile kind of concerns me with, the drops and just some other concerning like red flags in his profile. And also the fact that he fell out of the first round, which seems to be the expectation at this point, is that he's not going to be drafted in the first round anyway. So I think I like Zay Flowers' profile a little bit better. Plus, he gets higher draft capital and gets a better landing spot with the Chiefs.
I like it. Yeah. All right. Cool.
I will say, yeah. Before we move on, I feel like there's, before we did the 108, I feel like there's kind of a tier break there. Around like the 105, 106. Because obviously, okay, so you got Bijan locked in number 1. He's an elite prospect. I think the 4 quarterbacks, based on this mock, they all get good draft capital to warrant those picks. And then obviously JSN I would include in there too. I don't know how you feel about Gibbs, but I feel like so JSN went 106, right, in our mock draft.
106, yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the tier break. I mean, I like Jahmyr Gibbs a lot, but in this mock he went early second, right, to the Eagles.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I didn't even talk about the landing spot there. Okay.
Yeah. He went in the 6th pick in the 2nd round to the Eagles, which is a good landing spot, pretty good draft capital. I guess I'd be willing to include him in that tier. I would actually, yeah, because I think just his skill set matches that offense very well. Yeah. But I feel like after Gibbs, after the 107, I think there is kind of a drop off in terms of the tiers there. I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would agree. I think the first 6 or 7 picks, I think you're feeling pretty good about who you're selecting there. But I think after that, there's definitely a tier drop. And to me, it seems just looking at the next couple of people on the board who are open, I feel like the 108 to the 112 you're kind of getting similar guys in a similar tier. And then honestly, I feel like after like the 112, to me, we'll obviously get there in a few picks, but I'm thinking there's gonna be another tier drop after that, like in the early 2nd, where I feel like a lot of these guys have big question marks. I guess I shouldn't get ahead of myself, and then we'll I guess we'll get there in a few picks. But I mean, because that's the tricky part, especially this is a tight end premium, but only a 0.5. So where do you take Michael Mayer, and then Dalton Kincaid actually got selected before Michael Mayer to the Chargers. I mean, both great landing spots. Dalton Kincaid to the Chargers, the 1st round, 21st pick. Michael Mayer to the Bengals. So I mean, those are those guys are getting paired up with great quarterbacks. So I guess it's tough to where do you pick those guys.
Well, but so basically, though, I mean, to answer the question, it sounds like you agree that after the 107 is kind of a drop off there.
I would agree, yeah.
Okay, so then let me ask you, in this type of format, if you had the 108, would you trade it for a random 24 first?
Ooh, that's tough. I think if it's looking, if it's obviously not a team, that just won and is a huge contender, I think I would, yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I think I agree. Unless it's the team that's like far and away the favorite to win the championship. Any other team than that, I'd be willing to trade the 108 for 24 first right now. Just because, again, I do think there is that drop off, and again, like a lot of this is based on this mock draft that we're getting from NFL.com. But so actually, honestly, the NFL draft itself can change our perception of some of these players and some of these tiers. But even before we saw this mock draft, like Jordan Addison was not someone I was necessarily excited to draft. Now, based on this mock draft, I'd be a little bit more excited because he's the first wide receiver off the board and he goes to a good landing spot. But that shouldn't necessarily, like, if you feel that way about a certain player, if you feel one way about a certain player going into the draft capital is not the only thing that you should consider. It shouldn't completely change your perception of these players. So like I just said, for the example of myself, like I'm not excited necessarily to draft Jordan Addison. Now, if this mock draft were legit, yes, it would make me more excited, but it's still, at that point, I think the value you could get with the 24th first would be worth it to move off of this pick or definitely any other later pick after this.
Yeah, I like it. I agree.
Okay. All right, I know we're not even through the first round yet, so we'll keep it moving here. But so who are you taking at the 109, or what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I think at the 109, this is where it gets kind of tough, where I would see a lot of these guys similarly, but I think the next pick to me would have to be Zay Flowers. I think just based on landing spot there, so he would be the 3rd wide receiver off the board, 1st round draft capital, and you said that the Chiefs also traded up for him, right, to the spot?
Yeah, Chiefs traded up to the 24th overall to take Flowers.
Yeah, so I mean, I know Zay Flowers hasn't been getting a lot of hype recently. I think if he lands with the Chiefs, I know we shouldn't blow it out of proportion. I mean, like Sky Moore, obviously last year people blew that out of proportion, but I mean, I would say Zay Flowers has a lot more talent than Sky Moore personally. I think based on his prospect profile, I think people shot Sky Moore up way too high last year. But I think pairing up with Mahomes, he doesn't really have a clear wide receiver one currently. I could see Zay Flowers going in there and dominating. So, because Zay Flowers.
Yeah, that's what I would have taken there too. But again, like you see, like at this point, these picks are kind of hard. Like there's not necessarily one player that sticks out, and the reason we're valuing dudes like Addison and Flowers is because, they got good landing spots and teams traded up for them in this mock draft. But that doesn't happen in the NFL draft. We're not going to be really as excited about these guys. At least you and I personally, right? I mean, obviously everyone has their own takes and everything, but so that's why I feel like. And again, if you're consuming a lot of content, people have been talking about this for months now, at least weeks. But like, wherever you find a tier break in the first round, whether it's after the 107 or after the 106 or after the 108, like try to trade those later first round picks for 24 firsts if you can. Anyway, so without making it too long-winded, I think here at the 110, I'm going to take Zach Charbonnet. I know he went a little bit later than some of the other wide receivers in this mock draft, but he went with the 28th pick in the second round to the Bengals, and I think that is an excellent landing spot. This pick to me tells me that, I mean, the writing's already kind of on the wall, but this pick tells me that Joe Mixon is probably not going to be in Cincinnati this upcoming season. Or he might be facing some sort of like lengthy suspension for his off-the-field issues. So I think Zach Charbonnet, based on the profile, he's kind of like a first and second down grinder. Can catch the ball too, but I think more so used on first and second downs. I like the landing spot. It's a good offense, pretty decent draft capital for him. So I think I would pretty easily take him here.
No, I like it. Yeah, I think that's where I would take Charbonnet. I think you'd be pretty happy at the 110 to snag Charbonnet, especially if you're building more towards. So I guess process wise, we both I think would say that we like drafting our running backs, rather than kind of drafting some of these shaky wide receivers where we don't know where they're going to pan out to. I think drafting these running backs, especially, I mean, if you're at the 110, last year you finished third, in the playoffs. I think that's a pretty good pick there.
Yeah, although I will say for me, in terms of the running backs after Zach Charbonnet, I think there's a drop-off in tier.
I agree.
Yeah, so like, I'd be comfortable taking Charbonnet here, and in most mock drafts, right, he's going towards the end of the first round for the rookie mock drafts. But after that, I think there's a massive tier drop for running backs, especially based on this mock and some of the landing spots. So like again, this is a point where if you can trade down in your draft, like let's say maybe you're here at the 111 and you really want, or you're thinking of taking a running back here after Bijan, Gibbs, and Charbonnet have gone. I would explore trying to trade back a couple picks and tack on a future pick or another player or something, because at this point I think the running backs are very, very similar in terms of their profiles and their skill sets and their draft capital. But anyway, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves too much here. But so yeah, you're up now, right, with 111.
Yeah.
Here.
So I guess it's something I was thinking about. I think while you were debating between Addison, is where we should take Hendon Hooker is tough, because he, I guess in this mock he is drafted in the first round, so he would have first round draft capital to the Raiders. It is going to be tricky to say in a SuperFlex format, and he has the rushing upside. Obviously, he had the ACL injury, so he has injury question marks. How healthy is he going to be for training camp, etc. I don't think I would take him yet, personally. I think it's probably a little too early for me. Maybe if you really, really needed a quarterback, but I think I would go. Yeah, it's tough. I think I would go Johnston here.
Yeah, QJ.
It definitely does not feel great though. Yeah, I think this is where I would definitely want to move back. Like you said, this does not feel like a great pick.
Yeah. And again, I mean, at the end of the day, he got solid draft capital. He went, what was it, the second or third pick in the second round to the Texans.
Yeah, to the Texans. Yeah, 202.
Yeah. So that makes sense. So, and they pair him up with Will Levis. So it's kind of an interesting combo there for Houston. But yeah, like you said, this pick, it's not like super inspiring at this point, but still, all right. Yeah, I like the pick. I think, to keep it moving here, I like what you were saying about Hendon Hooker. And again, yeah, I think there is just given some of the tier drop offs that I'm seeing in some of the other positions,
Mhm.
I am going to go with Hendon Hooker here,
Okay.
uh, at the 112.
Spicy.
But yeah, I mean, hey, that's what we're about here, right? Dynasty Done Differently. We need the spice. Uh,
Absolutely.
or at least well, that's what we hope to do as we go
Yeah.
along. But yeah, Hendon Hooker. So as you said, he goes towards the end of the first round, 30th pick
Mm.
overall to the Raiders. Um, and in some ways, I think he's kind of similar to Anthony Richardson in that they're, a big strength of theirs is that they're mobile quarterbacks, but they're both kind of more developmental in nature, right? Like they're not coming in to
Mm.
start day one like Bryce Young and Will Levis and probably C.J. Stroud. So I could see Hendon Hooker. I mean, he's also recovering from an ACL injury, so he's probably not even going to be ready for training camp. So I could see them kind of easing him in.
Mm.
Obviously, they brought in Jimmy G this year, so I could very easily see Hendon Hooker, kind of taking a backseat to Jimmy G this year and not really being the starter until 2024. But at this point in the draft, I think I think it's a big tier of running backs that I'm not super inspired on. Same thing with the wide receivers and the tight ends. I know it is a point 0.5 tight end premium, but just at the end of the day, I think the value, the upside, if Hendon Hooker hits, is going to be much more valuable than any other player left on the board right now. So
Mhm.
that's why I would take him, even though it's maybe a bit of a riskier bet to make. I think if he hits, his upside is higher than anybody else on the board right now by far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, I would take him here, and that's how we close out the first round. So do you want to just recap the first round then?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, so it's only three running backs. So we took basically the top five quarterbacks. So yeah, Hendon Hooker going at the 112. I like it. I think like you said, I think looking at the other positions, I think taking Hendon Hooker in a super flex format is great. Where I think he's going to the Raiders, like you said. Um, Jimmy G is there now, so he's more of a vet quarterback where he could kind of learn the playbook this year, kind of get some reps in, and then maybe next year then he'll be ready for training camp. He'll be healthier, and maybe towards the end of the year they kind of work him in and kind of maybe if the Raiders are 2-12 or they're doing pretty bad, maybe they kind of throw him in there in the second half or something, and then we kind of see how and then kind of see how he does from there.
Right. Right, and just really quick, one more thing I will say. I know some people knock Hendon Hooker because of his age.
Mm-hmm.
Believe he's 24 years old now coming into the NFL draft. And yes, that is old for a prospect, but not really at the quarterback position. I mean, you see the quarterback position has the longest, longevity or the biggest longevity of any of the fantasy relevant positions in the NFL. So for me personally, the age is not really a concern. Now, obviously, right, if he kind of takes a year with a backseat of Jimmy G, he's going to be, 25, 26 years old once he's a starting quarterback in the NFL. So that is definitely something to keep in the back of your mind. But again, at this point, I like the upside of Hendon Hooker.
Mm-hmm.
So then, to really quickly recap the first round. So it went Bijan 101, Bryce Young 102, C.J. Stroud 103, Anthony Richardson 104, Will Levis 105, JSN 106, Jahmyr Gibbs 107, Jordan Addison 108, Zay Flowers 109, Zach Charbonnet 110, Quentin Johnson 111, and Hendon Hooker 112. So I would say that is a pretty a good combo of chalk picks, but also some spicy picks. So
Yeah, I like it.
well, and again, I mean, we're kind of launching this channel, so of course we're open to feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Love to hear from you guys in the comments what you think of this first round. Maybe what you do differently, picks you agree with, that kind of stuff. Feel free to roast us in the comments too. It's all right, we love it. It's all for all of us to get a little bit sharper here with our dynasty skills. But we're gonna keep going here. We'll move on to the second round. Our original plan was to do 3 rounds, but obviously we're talking a lot, so I don't know if we'll do 3 rounds, but I mean we'll see how quickly we get through the second round. But yeah, so you want to start us off here with the 201?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think glancing forward here a little bit, I think value wise, I think these early seconds. I know some people obviously, any first round pick has a lot more value. Even though the second round pick is 1 or 2 picks later after the 112. People I think in their head value wise bring the second round down a lot. And to me, just glancing at the board, I would feel much more comfortable maybe pushing back some of these early second round picks. Kind of if I have the 201, 202, 203, maybe even pushing it back for 2 late seconds, maybe a late second and an early third. Because I feel like the running backs here, it's kind of a dart throw. It's really hard to say how these guys are going to pan out. I mean, looking at the mock draft, we have Tajay Spears at 307, Zach Evans at 312 to the Browns, Kendre Miller in the third round as well to the Patriots. Chase Brown, Roshan Johnson, Devin Achane.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these running backs, I think in my mind, are going to be valued pretty similarly. Where I think I would be cool with pushing back some of these picks to the later second round. And I know we touched on the tight ends as well.
Oh, I didn't even realize it showed up on the stream that I highlighted the play.
Oh, yeah. I like it.
Okay, yeah. I figured we should just give it a recap. So, but yeah, I mean, like you said, makes sense if you can trade out of this pick, move down a couple spots to do so and gain some extra capital, whether it's another, player at a position you need or extra draft picks, whatever. But, yeah, so what are you thinking here, man?
I think the early seconds maybe where if I really needed a tight end, I would start thinking about the tight ends here, about Kincaid or Mayer. But it is tough to choose even, do you take Mayer or do you take Kincaid here? Because Kincaid actually goes before Michael Mayer, who goes to the Bengals, where I know Mayer is kind of the clear tight end one prospect-wise. I know Kincaid kind of has some question marks as well, but I think I would have to go Michael Mayer here. I think kind of going with the fact that I think sometimes in these rookie drafts you have to think about, how are other people in your league going to value these players too? Where you're using a pretty high pick on some of these guys. You have to think about, okay, maybe how can I trade these guys later? Are my league mates going to value this guy? Where I think you have to sometimes be a little careful on going for those massive sleeper picks. Like, all right, I'm going to take Sean Tucker here. I guess on sleeper ADP right here, he's kind of towards the end of the second round. I think you have to be a little careful sometimes, as I guess that's where it comes to the point of where process or just taking your guys. But I think this is a long-winded answer. I'm gonna go Michael Mayer. I think based on the tight end premium, I'm gonna go Michael Mayer here. Great landing spot to the Bengals.
Sure.
Linking up with Joey B.
Right, yeah. Hey, the Bengals are bringing in Zach Charbonnet, bringing in Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
Looking at the scary offense.
Kind of nasty, yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I agree with what you say, right? Definitely you have to know your league, have to know your league mates and what they're going to value. Now, when you were making this pick, in my head at first I was thinking, okay, whether you take Kincaid or Michael Mayer, whichever one you don't take is who I'm going to take next.
Yeah.
However, and then I was reminded of, as we said earlier, right, I think I credit a lot of kind of my dynasty strategy to Scott Connor and other people at the Destination Devy channel, but kind of going along with something that he says in a 0.5 tight end premium. I don't know if you all are familiar with WARP, but it stands for wins over replacement. Basically, it's a metric that calculates, how valuable a player is to your team, how many extra wins they are contributing to your fantasy team over the course of the season compared to like the replacement level, player, so to speak. And at a 0.5 tight end premium, tight ends are not that high. I don't know. I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but I know, at a 0.5 tight end premium, the WARP is not very high for tight ends. And also just given the fact that a lot of them take a while to develop. Yeah. Most tight ends aren't going to come into the NFL and produce for fantasy from day one. You've seen even with Kyle Pitts, who had a pretty good rookie season for a tight end, took a major step back in year 2, and so that's just one example. But so I'm actually out on tight ends in this range. So then for me, again, I don't know if this is a hot take. I mean, there's 2 wide receivers that both went to Tennessee, Jalen Hyatt, Cedric Tillman. Jalen Hyatt went in the first round to the Giants, 25th overall. Cedric Tillman went in the second round to the Falcons. I'm actually going to go with Cedric Tillman here. I know he got drafted later. He's further back in most people's rankings. However, based on some of the analysis I've heard from people who actually know what they're talking about when it comes to breaking down film and college production, the Tennessee offense was kind of wonky. And so basically the argument here is that Jalen Hyatt had a lot of plays that were kind of scripted for him, like, he was close to the line of scrimmage and was able to take a screen to the house or something like that. Whereas Cedric Tillman actually performed, comparably to Jalen Hyatt, and actually a lot of Jalen Hyatt's production, like his best production, came when Cedric Tillman was injured. So just in my opinion, I like Cedric Tillman a little bit more as a prospect. Both landing spots are, I don't think, amazing or terrible. Like I said, Hyatt goes in the first round to the Giants. Cedric Tillman goes mid-second round to the Falcons. And so, but just based on the prospect profiles here, I'm going to roll Cedric Tillman, which I feel like is probably a hot take to some people. But
Yeah.
again, we're here to bring you the spice, too.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I like it. That's a spicy pick. Yeah, I didn't expect you to take Tillman there, but I like it.
And I would say, like, even, regardless of landing spots, I just kind of prefer Tillman to Hyatt. And I
Mhm.
think they'll go in a similar range of the draft where, you can kind of at that point choose which player you like more coming in, and maybe like the specific landing spot. But I think they'll get pretty similar draft capital. Most mock drafts I've seen don't have Cedric Tillman going this high. They usually have him more like towards the back of the second or even in the third round. So that would
Mhm.
definitely change my opinion. But based on this mock that he goes, early to mid round two, he's the pick there for me. So I'm sorry, I know I kind of rambled there. So what's the next pick?
Oh, that's all right. So like I said, I think this goes back to my point of where, I guess in this range, I personally don't feel really comfortable picking these. I think there's kind of a massive tier here, where I think a lot of these guys are very similar value wise, and they have most of them have high upside potential, but they also have very big question marks. Or I think one of the shockers here for me is Josh Downs in the mock draft. He falls to the end of the second round of the Cowboys. So not a bad landing spot, but he's way past the first round here, which I think is concerning. I think basically so that means a lot of teams passed on him. So as I think a lot of people have Josh Downs towards the end of the first round, early second in terms of rookie draft picks. So I think I would kind of let somebody else take Josh Downs here.
Yeah.
And I don't love the Jalen Hyatt to the Giants pick, but first round wide receiver, I think I'm gonna have to go with Hyatt. So I guess the two Tennessee boys going back to back here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense, right? At this point in the draft, it's hard to pass up a first round wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else you want to say about that, or should we keep it moving?
No, I think I'm good. Yeah,
Okay.
it's all you.
All right. I'm locked in. Then my next pick here is going to be. Now he's a little bit further down the board, but like I said, I think after the big three running backs, a lot of them fall into the same tier. They get fairly similar draft capital in this mock draft, and I think their profiles. It's not like one stands out clearly above the rest or something like that. At least for me, from the research and the information that I've heard. So I'm going to go with Israel Abanikanda here.
I like it.
He goes
Love it.
late round 3, but I love the landing spot. He goes to the Cowboys. And we know right at this point it's basically Tony Pollard, who, he's coming off an injury, but he should be fine for the season. And Ronald Jones and Malik Davis. So I think Izzy Abanikanda can step up here and probably from day one be the number 2 running back after Tony Pollard. And I think given Abanikanda's size and frame, he's kind of like a bruiser, kind of similar to Zeke, honestly. So I don't think he's going to come from day one and take over the Zeke role, but I think he could kind of, as his rookie year goes on, grow into that role a little bit more and complement Tony Pollard, kind of like they had Zeke doing last season and the season before that a little bit. So yeah, I like the landing spot. Again, it's not the best in terms of draft capital of the remaining running backs, but I like the landing spot. I think it's comparable to the draft capital of some of these other dudes, and I just like his profile a lot too. So that would be my pick here.
I love it. I think on my running back rankings, I think I would have him 4th here. And in my opinion, I think that's a great landing spot for him. I think that's probably one of the better landing spots for the running backs. Because I think, like you said, you touched on it. I mean, Zeke's most likely not going to be there this year. I think Pollard is kind of one of those interesting guys where I think he's been hyper efficient, but I think the reason he's been so efficient is he's in that second role. He's in that secondary role and complements Zeke. So I think Izzy could jump into that RB1 role, and then Pollard is still that number 2 guy who kind of comes in and he has the upside of those big plays. He kind of comes in for those passing downs. So no, I love it. I think that's a great pick there. And then so at the 2-5, man, this is where it gets tough.
Well, you've been saying that for your last 3 picks.
I know. I feel like all these guys just feel like I would feel very similar taking them. So I think I would rather kind of push myself back towards the end of the second and just take whoever falls, and make other people kind of make these hard decisions.
Right. Yeah, no, I feel that. That's why we were saying earlier, yeah, to try to trade out of these picks if you can, because a lot of these profiles are pretty similar. And unfortunately, some of these picks aren't really all that inspiring anyway. So
Yeah.
but yeah. So what are you thinking?
Jonathan Mingo's actually very interesting. 214 to the Packers. That's a very high pick for Jonathan Mingo. I know he's been getting some hype recently. I've been seeing people say avoid him at all costs. That's very questionable of a pick. I think I'm gonna have to go Kincaid here. I think first round tight end. He actually gets picked before Mayer. I'd be really happy to get him at the 2.5 here.
Yeah. No, I get where you're coming from. Again, my mindset in this type of league with a 0.5 tight end premium is I'd rather pass on the tight ends here, let someone else draft them.
Right.
Because, I'm not obviously saying this to criticize your pick, but I'm just saying like where I'm coming from. Because right, it is in a tight end premium league, it's definitely not the norm to have the first tight end off the board not go until the 205 in your rookie draft.
Yeah.
But like for me personally, like I said, I'm willing to pass those guys over, let my league mates draft them, because I feel like there's still going to be a market. Let's say they hit their ceiling scenario year one. I think there's still going to be an opportunity to buy them next off season anyway. And I'd rather just kind of let someone else take the chance and the risk right now. Given the fact that there's low warp for tight ends in a 0.5 tight end premium. And also just the fact that a lot of them take some time to develop in the NFL and actually be fantasy relevant. But I like the pick. I mean, I don't think he can really slip much farther than this.
Yeah.
So then, all right. So if you go with Kincaid, let me just highlight that for us. So I think I'm going to go here with Tajay Spears.
Okay.
He's the next highest running back in terms of draft capital. He goes early round 3 to the Saints. And again, at this point, I'm kind of just going based on landing spot. These running backs have similar draft capital. They have similar prospect profiles in many ways. And I just like the landing spot here. I mean, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Kamara. I think it's not a certainty, but quite likely that he's going to miss some time due to suspension. And pretty much the only other guy they have there is Jamal Williams. So I think Tajay Spears, he's a smaller framed guy, but pretty good pass catcher. So I would imagine that they're going to bring him in and kind of use him on third downs, passing downs, and use Jamal Williams more as the first and second down grinder until they have Kamara back. So let's just to keep it kind of short here. That's who I would go with.
Okay. No, I like it. I think here I'm thinking about it. I think here I would also continue with the running back trend. I think I'm going to go Zach Evans here.
Okay.
He's a guy in my running back rankings, I have him at number 5, so I would actually have him after Izzy Abanikanda. I have him at 4, and then Zach Evans 5. I think the one concerning thing about him is that he was at 215 pounds, and then now he dropped down to 202 for the combine. So that's, I think, something that's a little concerning. And when you get kind of down to the 200-pound range, it gets a little. I think it gets a little dicey for the running backs of how durable they are going to be. But he has great pass catching upside. He's great, at juking defenders out. Great cuts and balance. Where I think, so he goes to the Browns here at the 312. Was it?
Yeah. 12th pick in the third round.
To the Browns. So I think he could be a great complementary piece to Chubb there with Kareem Hunt on the way out.
Sure. Yeah. No, I get it. I'm not the huge the biggest, Zach Evans fan, but I like the landing spot, like you said. I think, Cleveland, they run the ball pretty well, and he could be a nice complement to Chubb. All right. I am having a hard time with his next pick because I really like Kendra Miller as a prospect, but I really hate his landing spot. He goes in the third round here to the Patriots.
Yeah.
And that's tough for me because, we know the Patriots always have a running back by committee, but, they've got Ramondre there who's shown he can hold up and play on all 3 downs. Now, I don't think Kendra Miller would have a hard time beating out Pierre Strong and Kevin Harris for the or James Robinson, really, for the RB2 role on this team. But just kind of given the the landing spot and all the running backs they have there, I think we're going to have to pass on him here, which means I'm actually going to take Jonathan Mingo, who, like you said,
All right.
214 the Packers. He's a big body wide receiver. Now, I saw some people comping him to A.J. Brown. I don't think that's really realistic. I don't think he has the same ceiling as A.J. Brown. But again, I am not an NFL scout, so I can't tell you that with certainty. But he has a big frame, and the Packers need wideouts. I mean, it's it's Christian Watson. Maybe you throw Romeo Doubs in there, and they don't really have anybody else. So I think he could slot in nicely there. Obviously, we don't know exactly their quarterback situation. It looks like it's going to be Jordan Love, but regardless, I think he could step in there and have a pretty prominent role early on. How do you feel about your hometown Pack taking Jonathan Mingo?
Yeah, that's interesting because I know. I mean, obviously, a lot of Packer fans hate that the Packers haven't drafted a first round wide receiver for years and years and years. But I mean, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I literally had to scroll. I couldn't even find him. So he's not even on this ADP. So I had to type him in. So I mean, I think he's not really on many people's radars. Where I think, to me, this shows me that the Packers really like him, and I think that they're going to utilize him if they're taking him in the early second round. So I actually like that pick at the end of the second round, taking him at the 208. I like it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, and in case anyone was wondering, so yes, Gabe's a Packers fan, and I am a Bears fan, and so that should tell you all that you could get along with anyone, right? If you have a Bears and a Packers fan here, starting this YouTube channel together. I mean, hey, if Dynasty doesn't work out, Gabe, we could honestly do couples counseling or something, help people.
I think so.
Overcome their differences, but yeah, no, I think it's a good pick there. I like Jonathan Mingo in the landing spot. So what are you thinking here at the 209?
I like it as well. I mean, speaking of the Bears, I kind of like the Chase Brown there, early fourth round. I do like Chase Brown's prospect profile a lot. I think the Bears, then so he went to Illinois, so he'd be going to the Bears, staying in Chicago. Well, not staying in Chicago, staying in Illinois there. I kind of like. I think I'm leaning him.
I'm great with your geography, but that's okay. So you're leaning Chase Brown there?
Yeah, I think here is where I'd either want to go Downs or Chase Brown. I think I'm going to go Chase Brown here.
Okay. Yeah, are you locking it in?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, perfect, because I was going to go Josh Downs if you didn't take him.
All right.
I'll go with Josh Downs here. Again, another good landing spot. I think he fell a little bit further than I would have expected in this mock draft. He went towards the end of the second to the Cowboys. Again, nothing about his prospect profile, makes me fall in love with him or anything, but I think it is a good landing spot, good offense, and fairly decent draft capital. And so at this point, I'd prefer a round 2 wide receiver over a round 3 or 4 running back, given also that the guys who are left aren't really that inspiring to me. So pretty easily Josh Downs here for me.
No, I like it. Yeah, I think, as most people are having him potentially at the end of the first round, early second round in these rookie drafts, I think getting him at the 210, I think, is a steal almost, if he falls that far.
Right.
Man, this next pick is tough. As you touched on, I think this is where it gets a little dicey for the wide receivers. Once you kind of get, I think the hit rates of these wide receivers, kind of when you fall back to the third round and further, I think it gets a little dicey on the hit rate potentially. I really don't, so I guess the next wide receivers in the NFL mock draft is to the Bears at at the end of the second round. Rashee Rice. I mean, the Bears wide receivers are very dicey. They obviously just got DJ Moore. I mean, I know.
Talk about the dicey. They got Moore. They got Moody.
I know.
Traded the freaking 32nd overall pick for him, but that's okay. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I heard slander on my Bears.
No, that's all right. I feel like there's too many bodies back there, and I mean the Bears obviously threw the ball the lowest. I think in the back 3 last year in the NFL. So I'd be pretty iffy to take Rice here. I think I'm going to keep going on the running backs. I think hammering the running back. I think this is the time to do it towards the end of the second, early third. I think I'm gonna go Kendra Miller since he's the next guy off the board to the Patriots.
Yeah, I like it. I was gonna say if you don't take him, I'm gonna take him with my next pick.
Yeah.
So, no, I think that's the pick, right? You can only overlook the landing spot for so long. I mean, at the end of the day, he's got a pretty solid profile and decent draft capital as well. So,
Yeah.
okay, good. I like the pick. Now here for me,
Mhm.
I mean, this is the range where I'm okay taking a shot on a tight end
Okay.
in a 0.5 premium. And so I'm going to go with Darnell Washington here.
Okay.
He went early second round, 211 to the Packers. And so we see right there that in almost not quite back-to-back picks, but only 3 picks apart in the early second round, Packers go Darnell Washington and then Jonathan Mingo.
Yeah.
And actually Darnell Washington first with the earlier pick. And so maybe I should have brought that up when I made the Jonathan Mingo pick. But again, he's another guy it's kind of a raw prospect. A lot of upside. I don't think he maybe has like as much production from college as some of these other tight ends, but he's an athletic freak. I know he's got a really high RAS score and pretty decent draft capital here. So I know what I said earlier about tight ends. I'm usually willing to let my league mates take them, but here at the 212, I think it's a whole different ball game, and it's at this is the point in the draft where I'm willing to kind of take a risk on one of these guys that they end up having a successful rookie season, and then I can turn him for a profit in the offseason, or even just obviously keep him on my own team for a while. So I like Darnell Washington there. Now let me ask you, because I don't know how many we're quite a few minutes into this thing here. Do we want to do the
56.
third round, or do we just kind of cut it off here?
I'd be down to cut off. Yeah, I guess we're coming on an hour now. I guess
Right.
maybe we can just briefly talk about. I guess maybe just our strategy in the third round.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want to just run through the second round really quick, the picks in order?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so Michael Mayer at the 201, Cedric Tillman, and then Jalen Hyatt, the Tennessee boys, 202, 203. Izzy Abanikanda at the 204, and then another tight end, Dalton Kincaid, who went in the first round of the mock draft. Tajay Spears at the 206, Zach Evans, 207, 208 is Jonathan Mingo, which is a big jump. Chase Brown, 209, Josh Downs, 210, Kendra Miller, 211, and then Darnell Washington at the 212. So kind of going back and forth between the RBs and the wide receivers there.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting first 2 rounds. I have to say, given expectations and like where you have to draft certain guys, this might sound counterintuitive, but I feel like the end of the first round is my least favorite, and I actually like the middle to the late second round better because you're getting good value on a lot of these guys. At least in my opinion, it sounds like you agree. But I mean, like we were saying, some of these running backs, to have Kendra Miller at the 211. Or who's the other dude, like Zach Evans at the 209. I think like you're getting good value on these picks, and that's why, as we were saying earlier, I think it makes sense if you can trade out of those late first round, early second round picks. And it depends what you want to do with them. I mean, if you can turn a late first round pick this year into a 24 first next year plus something else, I would do that. Or also, if you're at the end of the first round or the very beginning of the second round and you can't get a future first, I'm okay moving down a couple spots and adding, even tacking on like another third later on in the draft or something like that. I don't think you need to get something, massive tacked onto that, but I'm okay even just accruing a little bit more draft capital or players that I like to move down a couple spots, because as we said, I think these are kind of big tiers, and I don't want to be the one I don't want to be the one drafting the first guy from a tier.
Exactly.
Because if they're all in the same tier, I'd rather move back a couple spots and gain some other value elsewhere. Sounds like you feel similarly.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. I feel like, especially like I alluded to at the earlier, I think that early second round, I'm really not liking it. I think if you can get 2 late seconds for the 202 or something like that, or like a late second and early third, or like a late second and a 24 second, I would really love that. So I just feel like kind of like Cedric Tillman, Jalen Hyatt. I feel like those guys, and Mayer, like you were talking about the tight ends. I think, like you said, if you're the person having to take the risk and taking those guys early that have the question marks, I don't really want to pick there.
Right. Yeah. It makes sense. And I know, so we're not going to go through the third round here, but I mean, there's still some pretty, enticing names on the board. I mean, you've got Luke Musgrave at the tight end position, who went, 16th pick in the second round to the Commanders.
Yeah.
Still got Sam Laporta, who went in the second round, Tucker Kraft in the second round, Zach Kuntz and Luke Schoonmaker in the third round. Wide receiver, you still got Rashee Rice, as you were talking about him earlier, went towards the end of the second to the Bears. Marvin Mims in the early third, Tank Dell in the third. Kayshon Boutte fell to the end of the third, as did Parker Washington. And then some of the running backs too. You got Roshan Johnson, Devon Achane, and Eric Gray all going in the fourth round as well. So there's definitely still some enticing names here. And just for the sake of kind of going through this for conversation's sake.
Yeah.
In the third round, I would probably be looking more so to hammer some of these running backs because I think they're all going to fit somewhere onto a depth chart. I mean, Scott Kiner talks about this a lot, and so do many other dynasty analysts. There are very, very few teams in the NFL nowadays that have like a true workhorse running back. I can probably count them on one hand. So all these guys are going to slot into an RB by committee somewhere, and so I'm willing to kind of take a chance on them here, as opposed to maybe some of the wide receivers that didn't get great draft capital, especially because we know the hit rates for third, fourth wide receivers drafted in the third and fourth rounds and beyond are not great. And again, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier too in terms of the tight ends. I usually am willing to let my league mates draft the tight ends in a tight end premium league like this. So I'm looking mostly at running backs in the third round, maybe some tight ends as well. But do you feel differently, or you have a different strategy?
No, I think I would agree with probably tanking Tank Bigsby, Devin Achane, Roshan Johnson here, in the early third, and maybe sprinkle in one of those wide receivers. I don't know. I kind of like Mims' landing spot to the Cardinals. I think he would out of the rest of the wide receivers. I think I would probably take Mims next. I like him a lot. I think he has a chance of kind of having some high upside, and I like the landing spot over Rice there. And I guess like for this mock draft you're talking about, we're doing only a 0.5 tight end premium. And so I know so then me and Paul are in some leagues where it's 2 PPR total for the tight ends. I think this is potentially where I'd start wanting to just hammer some of these tight ends, where in the 2 PPR format you can flex a lot of these tight ends more
Frequently.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I think here's maybe where but in this format, I would probably stray away from the tight ends, like you said, because with the warp and everything, I really don't think you want to kind of clog your rosters with these back end tight ends that probably have a really low chance of having some really meaningful impact on these rosters.
Right, yeah. And to be fair, if this was a 2.0 tight end premium, I think a lot of the tight ends would be gone at this point anyway. So,
that's true.
I agree with hammering some of them home in the third round, but I think probably most of the notable ones would be gone already.
Yeah.
At least definitely more than the top 3 like we have here. So, again, yeah, like we said many times, I mean, the format matters, the specific league matters, even knowing your league mates and kind of their tendencies matter too. Okay, well, I mean, so you said, we're at just about an hour now. Are we over an hour?
Yeah, over an hour. An hour and 2 minutes, I think.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I mean, we thought this was going to take like 20 minutes. So,
that's how it goes.
Yeah, we're new to this, but, we wanted to start putting out some content and hopefully connecting with people through YouTube and maybe elsewhere too if we kind of expand the channel. But, we love playing Dynasty Fantasy Football. We're both pretty passionate about it. And so we'd love to connect with you guys. As we said, please, like the video. If you like this content, feel free to leave a comment, whether it's, something you like, something you didn't like, constructive feedback, constructive criticism, whatever it is. Let us know your thoughts, your opinions, maybe how you would do things differently.
Any trades or anything you guys have? Yeah. Any questions?
Yeah, we'd love to hear all that stuff. And, as we go along here, obviously we're going to kind of see where this goes. We don't know where this is going to go yet, but hopefully we can kind of turn this into a regular thing. Just kind of, connect with other people who are as obsessed with Dynasty as we are, or at least maybe we can make them as obsessed as we are if things go well. But in the meantime, it'll be really fun to watch the draft. Enjoy the next couple days. Talking to you, Gabe. Talking to whoever else is listening to this, but enjoy the next 4 days, right? It's going to be craziness. You're going to hear all these different rumors every day. We've already heard them all swirling around, so just enjoy it. It's a fun time, and this is also definitely a good time to take advantage of some of those rumors and maybe make some trades now that can, like we said, if you can kind of piece out where the tiers are for you in the rookie draft, try to make leverage trades to get yourself in a better position and gain some extra draft capital. But I'm sure you feel the same way. We could probably go on for like another 2 hours just talking about this stuff. So I'm gonna stuff off here for now. But was there anything else you wanted to add, man?
No, I think I guess maybe something that would be fun is take a player that you really like at that spot, like that you thought was great value. Somebody that you really like their landing spot with the mock draft. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you want to do that
Who would
now
you
in
pick?
terms of draft board?
Sure.
Ooh, it's tough. I think probably I'm going to go with Izzy Abanikanda at the 204.
I like it.
I think my favorite pick because I just good landing spot, and I like his profile, and to be able to get him at the 204, I think was pretty solid value. Obviously, I don't know if you'd be able to do that in every league, but I think that was my favorite pick. What about you?
Yeah, I think that definitely has to be one of my top picks there as well. I think I'm kind of looking at the end of the first round there. Because the end of the first round, it gets a little tricky in that spot, as we talked about in that tier, after Gibbs and JSN. I think it'd probably be Addison or Flowers at the 108 or the 109. I think those are pretty solid if you have one of these late firsts. Because based off those landing spots, those are fantastic. To the Bills and the Chiefs, I think people are going to go nuts about that. Where I think if you have one of these late round picks, it might feel a little dicey to take a shot on these guys. But I think something else you have to think about is I think those guys are going to retain value, though, because they had these great landing spots. I think people are going to give them a chance. So if they, kind of start off a little rocky, I think they're going to maintain some value, where they had the first round draft capital in the NFL draft, and they went to great landing spots.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. People are definitely going to buy into those landing spots if that ends up, being the case. Obviously, this is based on a mock draft, so I like that. One last thing I will say really quickly. So obviously in this draft, we went Will Levis at the 105, JSN at the 106. I think both of us agree that based on the landing spots, based on this mock draft, that's how we would chalk it up. But also, one thing that's important to keep in mind, in a lot of your leagues, people are, for the last couple years now, people have been, like salivating at the idea of JSN on their teams, on their dynasty team.
Yep.
Whereas Will Levis is the complete opposite end of the spectrum. Nobody likes him. And so it's almost to the point where, maybe JSN is a little bit overhyped, and maybe Will Levis is almost not getting enough respect.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, like, this is our first video, but like we always say amongst ourselves, like, with Dynasty, you're drafting more so best player available. You don't really want to go based on positional need unless you have players in the same tier, and then use the positional need as a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
But so keep that in mind. Like, we like that Will Levis went second overall in this mock draft, but it's going to take a lot for him. It's going to take a lot for Dynasty players to buy into him, whereas JSN could have one or two highlight reel catches during training camp, and his value could skyrocket. He could be a top 10 Dynasty wide receiver. Right, 100%. Whereas Levis, he might have to prove it on the field for his whole rookie season, and maybe even part of his second year too, just to kind of have the requisite value that you'd want for him. So just keep that in mind too when you're making these picks. You don't want to play Dynasty in too broad of a window, but you also you want to pay attention to what's going on right now too. And so again, I don't want to get like long-winded here, but I think that's something to pay attention to as well when you're in these drafts is, again, know your league, know your league mates, and kind of know the value you could get for these players later on down the road. Whether you decide to trade them to someone else or keep them on your own team. So I'll kind of leave it at that for me, unless there's anything else you wanted to add in.
Nope. Perfect. I like it.
All right, well, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was.
Anyone sticking around here till the end of the video, we appreciate you. I hope you like the content, and again, please let us know your thoughts. Positive, negative, neutral, whatever it is, and enjoy the next few days. Enjoy the NFL draft. We'll be watching it together and kind of breaking it down, amongst ourselves, and maybe we'll post another video after the draft. Talking about our thoughts. But it was good chopping it up with you, man.
This was awesome.
Not too bad for a Packers fan, I have to say.
Yeah, get out of here.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was fun. I hope we can do it again. All right.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. See ya.
Peace, guys.